Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are all doing well. So today, as you've seen by the title, we're going to be talking about all of my recent reads. So these are going to be all of the books that I've read so far in 2024. I know that I kind of fell off on recent reads for a while, so I feel like there's a lot in 2023 that I didn't talk about, but I don't feel like talking about those today. So if you want to know what I read in 2023, my Goodreads is linked in the description. I don't feel like talking about those because it was so long ago. So we're just going to be talking about my 2024 reads so far. I feel like for these, I'll probably do it like 2 months at a time and just, you know, go off of there. We'll start with what I read in January. January was actually a really good reading month for me. I read 5 books, which I feel like is a lot for me. Recently, I haven't really been reading too much, but January, there was just something in the air that I was just devouring books like at a crazy rate. All of them I actually really enjoyed. I think there was a couple, there were 2 that I didn't like, but 3 of them I really liked. So more than half of what I read last month in January I really enjoyed. So the first book was actually a buddy read with Kirsten, which I feel was like the perfect way to start off the year because I just love her so much and I love this book so much, so I feel like it was a perfect way to start 2024. Heartstopper Volume 5. This was amazing. I was so sad at first because I thought that this was going to be the last book in the series and I just was not ready for that to be the end of these characters. It's not the end of them because, you know, they're still going to be alive, but like it's the end of what we see, so then the rest is just up to interpretation. So I was really scared, but then Brittany informed me that there was actually going to be a 6th volume out and this was no longer the last volume, and the wave of relief that flooded over me was crazy. So now I feel like I'm going to be ready for that because this one I was not ready, but now I feel like I'm ready. But like I'm still gonna be so sad. But I love this one so much. This was really just exploring like the depths of Charlie and Nick's relationship. So there was a lot of talk about stuff in this book, and I really like the way that it was handled. I just love these characters so much, and I'm so sad that the next volume is gonna be the last one, and I'm not ready to let them go. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Every Heartstopper graphic novel that I've read, I've given 5 stars because I just love them so much, and they're just perfection. Like these are the most perfect books to exist in the universe. I don't make the rules. Alice Oseman knew what she was doing when she wrote those. She ate it up. The next one is like completely different vibes than Heartstopper. The Atlas Paradox by Olivie Blake. I reread The Atlas 6, I think in December. Then I was really excited to jump into the next one, and I really enjoyed this one. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5, I believe. Yes. And I'm really excited to read more. The third and last book actually came out, I think in the beginning of January, which I felt like was the perfect timing, and I had full intentions of diving into the third book right after I finished this, but I never got around to doing that. So hopefully sometime later in the year I will be getting to the third book in this series. But I really enjoyed this one. I really liked how the world was expanded upon. I felt like the stakes were a lot higher because there was a thing that happened at the end of the first book that kind of like was the main focus point of this, but also there were other things going on. A lot of the time I didn't really understand again what was happening. Got it, but I didn't understand what it was because it's very like science-y. It was still a fun time, and Libby did a madness at the end of this book and she was like on full-on girl boss mode. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the next one because we figured out a lot of things about the society that were kind of hidden. There's like a really big thing going on, and then there was like, I don't even know. This book was crazy. Talking about it now is making me really excited to read the third book. So maybe I should put a hold on that on Libby. I don't know if I already do or not. I will check out after this video. I really want to read the third book now. So thank you to myself for talking about this book so I can continue on with the series because I forgot how wild this one got. There was a lot of stuff. Oh wow. There was a lot in this one. The third book that I read in January was actually the December Best Season Books book club pick. The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I gave this a 3 out of 5, which I feel like is really generous because I honestly didn't really like this book that much. I feel like the more time that I have away, the less I like it, if that makes sense, which is really sad. I can see why people like it. I just don't think that it's for me. Just didn't really like the pacing of this book. I felt like it was really weird. Some of the dialogue was really strange and out there, and I felt like it was really misleading because it was said to be at a wedding, but most of the book was actually just set in their office setting, and not much of the wedding was shown. By the time that I was like towards the end of this book, I was just kind of like checked out. I can see the potential, and I think I went into it with the wrong expectations. The next one, Together We Rot, and I was so excited to read this book, but again, I think I went into it with the wrong expectations, and I honestly did not know anything about this book going into it. I still had a really good time with it. I feel like this is the opposite of the Spanish Love Deception, where the more time I have away from this, the more I like it. Because recently I've been finding myself really thinking about this a lot and just like how different this book is from anything I've ever read and just like how out there it is. But when I first read it, it was nothing like I was expecting. I wasn't expecting there to be like a heavy focus on a church, but I guess I should have known that because this book is literally like about a cult and like unraveling the mysteries of the cult. So I should have seen that. Honestly, don't really have too many thoughts about this, but I think I can see a reread happening in the future. SPC randomly is going to take off into space. It's literally about to take off. There were a couple things that I really liked. I feel like if this book was longer, I probably would have liked it more. Because I do feel like the ending of this was really rushed. But all that is not to say that I don't recommend this book. I do think that it has a lot of stuff in it that people will enjoy. It is very like gothic, spooky, a little bit scary. There's kind of a mystery going on. There is a really weird creature that we are introduced to. And I feel like a lot of people will like this book. And I honestly really haven't seen that many people talking about it. Like, this cover is what really drew me in. So I do recommend it. I just didn't know what I was getting into. And then the last book that I read in January was like, I think this is my favorite book so far of 2024, which I feel like is very ambitious to say, but I have been wanting to read this book for so long, and I just knew. Like, I felt like the pull and the connection between me and this book, and I just knew that I was gonna love it so much, and that is A Dowry of Blood. This is actually gifted to me by Kirsten, and I started reading it like a couple nights after I got it because I just couldn't wait. I was going to try to save it for like spooky season, but there was no way that I was going to be waiting that many months to read this when I was so excited about it then. I'm so glad that I did. I literally flew through this book. I don't even know how long it took me to read, but I read it so fast and I loved it so much, and it lived up to my expectations and then some. It wasn't what I was expecting, but it was like a lot better than what I was expecting. So it's told in like the form of letters, and it is about like the wives of Dracula, but it's told to him in the form of letters. So it is written in second person, but I didn't find that creepy at all because I knew that it was letters and it wasn't really her talking to me, because I would never do those things. I would never have thought of doing those things. But it was just so interesting and I really loved it, and I was just felt myself like so enticed and like engrossed in the story, and I just couldn't get enough. And even when I finished it, I was like, man, I want to read it again, and I still want to read it again. So maybe I will when it is spooky season, just so I can have the vibes. And I love this so much. It was fantastic. So obviously I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, and I really highly recommend it, but definitely check out the trigger warnings before you read this book because there are a couple. I feel like this is like one of my favorite books ever, and it's definitely like my top favorite book of 2024 so far, because it's just, it ate and left no crumbs, and it was so good. Still can't believe that like I read this book because it just feels too perfect to exist. I feel honored that I was able to read it. So now we are getting into the books that I read in the month of February, which wasn't that long ago. I was expecting to read a lot more books than I did, but I ended up getting very busy with classes, and it just kind of like took over everything. But I did really enjoy all the books that I read. February was like a really good reading month as well. I didn't have anything below a 3-star, so that was good. I guess in January I didn't have anything below a 3-star. I didn't have anything below a 4-star in February. First one, I was actually not expecting to read this one anytime soon, but Brittany would just kept talking about it, and I felt like it was finally time to sit down and read this book and just like devour it, and I'm so glad that I did, because I actually gave this 5 out of 5 stars, and it was so good. And that was Counting Down With You by Tashie, Bhuiyan, and I had such a good time with this book. I can't even like explain to you how good it was. And I feel like if this would have been around when I was a teenager, this would have helped me so much like with my anxiety, and I'm so happy that I read it. And I feel like this is like one of the most perfect YA books. It's a fake dating book, but there's like so much more to it than just that. I can't even like put into words how much I love this book or like what it's about, because I feel like it's just too good for me to explain, and I'm not good at explaining books. So this book is about our main character Karina, and her parents are going on a trip to Bangladesh, where she is finally going to be free to be herself and to do the things that she wants to do, because she feels like with them around, she's not really able to be herself. She has to be who they want her to be, and so having this freedom is so nice. She ends up actually tutoring this guy named Ace. That would have been like, her parents would not have allowed that to happen at all, but she ends up tutoring him, and it's not what she expects, and he's not what she expects, because he is said to be like this really bad boy, the stereotypical bad boy with the leather jacket and the rings and all that stuff, but he really isn't that at all. He's really just like a golden retriever. Like, I love him to pieces. I highly recommend everybody read it because I had a great time. It was very fun. It was very fun. And then I followed that up with a book that was vastly different in vibes. I think I was actually reading these two books at the same time. They completely different vibes. The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I've talked about this a little bit in a couple of my vlogs. I have been wanting to read this series for so long. It was on my 23 to read in 2023 and on my 24 to read in 2024. And I knocked it off early. I really liked this book, and I don't want to say that I enjoyed it because it was kind of hard to read it sometimes, because it is talking about a war, and like a war is the main focus. And there's a lot of brutal stuff in here that happens. scenes and like traumatizing things. I highly recommend you check out the trigger warnings before reading this book because there is a lot going on. It was hard. It was really hard. I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5. The reason why I didn't get a 5 is because the pacing I wasn't expecting. The pacing takes place like over many years, and at first it was a little bit hard for me to follow because I was like, wait a second. We were just like, she was just in her first year at the school, but I have come to really appreciate the pacing of the story, and I feel like that is the best way for the story to be told. And R.F. Kuang's writing is just wonderful. Like, I felt like I was in the story. I wasn't just reading words on paper, you know? So I'm very glad that I finally got to this book and that I knocked it off of my list because it was fantastic. Then the last book that I have to talk about was actually the January Besties of Book club pick, which I didn't read until the end of February, which I'm not very proud of, but I'm trying to do better. I'm going to do better. And that was Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden Thomas. I actually listened to this through audiobook, which I haven't listened to an audiobook in a long time, but it kind of like unlocked that like audiobooks are kind of nice. I also gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I don't know what it was. I can't see myself giving this any other rating other than a 5. Just had a great time. At first I was like a little bit iffy about it, but like once I got into the story, I could not be stopped. I was like speed listening to this. I think I was listening to this on 3 times speed, which was really fast. I don't know how I did that, but like I was processing it. Yeah, I listened to this audiobook on 3 times speed.
3?
Yeah. I love this one so much. So this is kind of like a reimagining and a retake on Peter Pan. It's like following Wendy as our main character. And a couple years back, both her and her brothers went missing, but she was the only one that came back. So she's been trying to figure out what happened. She doesn't remember anything about it. But recently, there's been like a resurfacing of memories coming. She is drawing this tree nonstop unconsciously, and she is also drawing this man, which she knows as Peter Pan. Suddenly, she hits him with her car, and things transpire from there. Kids start to go missing again, and she feels like there's a connection between those cases and the ones with her brothers. So she's trying to figure out with Peter Pan. Peter also lost his shadow, so they're trying to get it back. There's a lot happening, but the way that it's done and described, I feel like is done so well, and I had such a good time with this book, and it was so dark. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be as scary as it was. There were parts, like the shadow was absolutely terrifying. He will be in my nightmares for the rest of my life. Like, he was a scary man. Aiden Thomas did a great job at explaining him. I truly love this book, and I feel like if you guys like Peter Pan or fantasy retellings or like scary mysteries, I feel like you will really like this. I have seen people say that like the romance between Wendy and Peter kind of felt forced and unnecessary. I honestly didn't mind it, and I felt like it was so minuscule enough that you don't really notice it. For me, I felt like everything else in the plot was kind of taking more importance than the romance, and I honestly didn't really like process that was happening. I really was just focusing on the other aspects of the story. Anyways, I highly recommend this book because it's just so much fun. It's just, yeah. This one was a great pick. So that is all the books that I have read recently in the year of 2024. I feel like this is actually a lot of books for me. So I'm very proud of all of the reads. I've only had 2 kind of disappointing ones, but one of them I feel like I will like it better if I reread it. I hope you guys have had a successful 2024 reading year so far. Let me know what your guys' favorite books were, what you've been reading. If you've made it to this point in the video, I love you so much. Comment down below a bear emoji. All of my socials will be linked in the description as always, and I will see you guys in my next video. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye!